I would say my biggest concern was always linebacker. And I think Brent Venables, from what he said, and he doesn't say a lot, he's very close to the chest about everything. But
Yeah.
we know Chad Smith's going to be the will linebacker. We know James Skalski's going to be the middle linebacker.
Hmm.
And if you listen to him at all in the interviews, you're okay with that. I mean, he's ready. I believe it. And then you're going to have Sam, obviously Isaiah Simmons, one of the most snaps on the entire team last year, so he's ready and there. He's not going to come off the field. Skalski's not going to come off the field. One good thing is I think that Chad Smith originally back last year had spelled some for the middle linebacker in certain situations and in practice. So Chad has even said, "Hey, I can move from Will to Mike if they need me, but Venables definitely needs me at Will right now." So I would feel like that's kind of what's expected for um, for Chad Smith for sure.
Hmm.
Underneath Chad Smith, you have Balin Spector. I really haven't heard a lot from him. I haven't seen any interviews from him, so I don't know much about it other than what Chad Smith says. And Chad says he has a lot of confidence in him behind there. And then you've got the new guys, Bentley, McGuire, Patterson, all kind of competing for that. Under the Mike linebacker, this is kind of a mystery. You've got James
Yeah.
Skalski, maybe Jake Venables, maybe. He's obviously got the size. He's 235. Kane Patterson's name's been out there for that. Mike Jones Jr. too. But I just don't see a true freshman going into the Mike linebacker position. I just don't see it. Not for Venables at all.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling like Skalski's going to get majority of the snaps for sure. And then Isaiah Simmons over in the Sam,
Hmm.
majority of the snaps, like I said. Mike Jones for sure. But Venables feels like he's got about five guys that he's very confident in. But that's not a lot of guys.
That's true. I got to be honest. I wasn't as concerned about the linebackers as everybody else was. Obviously, we lost a lot there, so it's a pretty good reason to be concerned about it. But it's Venables and linebackers. He seems to work his magic every year, and I have no reason to believe this year will be any different. I think that Skalski will be great there in the middle. I have faith. I have more faith than a lot of people in Chad Smith. I really loved him in the recruiting process. Clemson got in on him early when he was a 3-star. I'm pretty sure he was a borderline 5-star. I'm not sure if he ever pushed past that threshold or not, but I think it's finally time for him to show out. And of course, you have Simmons on the other side, who can play. NFL written all over him. So I'm not as concerned about the linebackers. I think my biggest question coming in was the defensive tackles, and being able to stop the run, because we've been so good at that the past several years. I think it all starts there. I think defense starts with stopping the run, and so obviously Pinckney and Williams have been out, all summer, all spring and summer, and they were cleared for contact. So I think everybody kind of breathed a sigh of relief. These guys are back, 100%. And then you get into practice and you hear some of the comments. Maybe they're not 100%. Maybe they're just back for full contact, but not necessarily 100%. I think Pinckney especially kind of mentioned that he wasn't 100% yet. And Jordan Williams just wasn't really sure. He said, we'll really know when we get the pads on and find out. So hopefully we get some good news in that regard. But that was kind of my main concern, was defensive tackle. A couple other things I kind of picked up on. One, of course, was on a lot of people's minds, that Xavier Thomas at one point ran out on the field with the third string defensive ends. I don't know if you heard about this, but it was a hot topic for a while. I'm here to say, don't read anything into that. He is not a third team defensive end. Coaches send messages, and this is just one of the ways they do that. I'm not sure what he was in the doghouse for, but it was obviously something. So Sweeney sending a message, throwing him out there with a third team. He's not a third teamer. Expect him to play early and often. Did you have any thoughts about Xavier Thomas?
Yeah, I didn't think anything of that as well. It's much
Yeah.
like the summer depth chart. Everybody was freaking out about the depth chart, and I'm thinking, guys, this is the summer depth chart. Even Ellis Tolbert, who is a guest that comes on our show sometimes, even said,
Yeah.
hey, this is the summer depth chart. They only do two deep. They don't put everything on there. People were freaking out. Where's Jake Venables? Oh my goodness, what? Chad Smith and the Mike linebacker, and all this, Amari Rogers is on the list, and he's not. He's
Yeah.
injured. What's going on? And so to me, I think just hold the horses, right?
That's right.
Um, Dabo Sweeney said he hasn't seen enough. I mean, you think about it. This is probably what, I mean, 5 days now, 6 days that
Yeah.
he's really seen these guys, and this is the first day of full pads. So you got to gradually. It's they say in the army, walk before you can run, crawl before you can walk, kind of thing, and you got to gradually get into it. But I also want to, even though I say gradually, I say that in to remind people that even Dabo said this is not even though this is the start of the season for you and me and for the fans that are watching, it's not the start of the season for this team. The start of the season is in January. Right after that game was over with, they immediately started the season and got to work and have been doing a lot of transformational stuff on their bodies and on their minds, getting ready for the season. And so now it's just putting that practice in there. They've already practiced, in spring, but it's game time for sure. They've got everybody in, even the late enrollees, all there, and getting a lot of good feedback from everybody. Not any negative, but I don't expect any negative. It's kind of what they say, coach speak, right? You don't expect any negative to start out for sure. Jordan Williams, Niles Pickney, they seem to be very confident. Jason Priester had mentioned that he's worried most about the defensive tackle depth, and I know a lot of fans are that way for sure. But I agree. Clemson Carson was saying defensive end's not a problem. Thomas, Foster, Henry, Rudolph, Maskell. Hey, Carson, don't forget. They just moved Greg Williams over there, who they say is like, how Kane and Keith are like twins on the field? Him and Justin Foster are like twins. And, David Hood from TigerNet, I saw a post on there where he said, hey, I don't see any reason why he was ever a linebacker, because when he came in, you could tell he was bigger and had a bigger stature than Trey Lamar. So you kind of knew that was where he was eventually going. So defensive end, definitely not worried. Jason says not worried either. So defensive end for sure. Defensive tackle, though, and Jason has posted this in some of his write-ups, is that you get an injury, you get an injury, then a true freshman is playing.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like really playing. And while Tyler Davis looks good, he is still a true freshman, and he's not like it's not like a superstar Justin Ross true freshman, not like a Dexter Lawrence true freshman. These guys are, kind of the 4-star guys that still have to prove themselves, guys. I think they can. They're just definitely not like elite guys sitting back there on the defensive line is what I'm talking about.
One of the things that I kind of thought jumped out about camp was Andrew Booth. Everybody knows Andrew Booth, okay? He's a shiny 5-star toy we now have and as our defensive back, okay? He's a corner. He's a little taller corner, which kind of Clemson has fallen in love with in the past few years. He just has absolute elite measurables, okay? This kid is quick. He's fast. He's physical. He can do it all, and a lot of people are wondering, is he going to play early? Well, the only problem is you've got Derion Kendrick and A.J. Terrell also vying for those spots. And, of course, we got Sheridan Jones and how good he looked as well. So there's going to be some fighting to be had for these positions for sure. But he's kind of one that's been talked about at camp is this guy's going to be ready to contribute sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the defensive backs because Dabo has mentioned by name Lee Anthony Williams, Mario Goodrich, saying that those guys have taken leaps and bounds. Derion Kendrick, T. Higgins came out and said that when he's playing against him, it is like playing against a 5-star dude right in your face. It's like he picked it up immediately with no problem. Yeah. And that's exciting to hear from him. And I know they're going to miss him because he seems like a kind of a perfect slot guy for me. But he did so well as a defensive back that I feel like that Brent Venables and Dabo Swinney have made the call to just go ahead and keep him on the defense. Clemson Carson mentioned too, do we know anything about punt returners? Well, we do. We have some feedback from punt returners, and Dabo also in his interviews were saying that just because you saw Lynn J. Dixon back there doesn't mean that they were actually part of the lineup. So he's got some. You're going to see some guys talked about in fall camp that were just there as ball catchers. Yeah. Okay, so, and he mentioned Lynn J. specifically in that sentence about that, but he felt like that it's still DK's job, Derion Kendrick, it's still Amari Rogers' job when he gets back. He's very impressed with Kevon Wallace playing that position as well, or doing the punt returns as well. And he also mentioned the Will Sweeney and Will Brown, some lesser-known names, but guys that he feels like have proven that they can perform at that position. So that's what you're looking at as far as kickoff returner, punt returner. DK going to be there. Kevon Wallace going to be there. Heard some Cornell Powell a little bit, because he did it last year too. Kind of more of a consistency. You don't want to lose the ball, right? You don't want to turn it over. In the case of every time I think of turning it over, I think of the Notre Dame one where it was like a bad call, But yeah, so that's kind of where the punt returners are. there's still, even with the loss of Kyler McMichael, I think there's a lot of depth on the defensive back side of
Mm-hmm.
things. Safeties, I think those guys all look good. Like I said, I mean, really, there's still the same questions are out there. I know people are wanting like answers right now, but they've just started. Okay, so they really are just now seeing them in pads, full pads today. So we don't really know for sure 100% yet, but we're going to keep you updated as much as we can.